Hey, welcome back to A&Q. It's been so good for us to talk about some of these big spiritual questions that we have together. One of our hopes is that we can model how to be both informed and respectful when it comes to complex questions that could be divisive. So here's today's question. Do Muslims believe in Jesus? And I think that's an interesting question because it depends on what you mean by believe in. If you mean, do Muslims believe that Jesus is the Son of God, that Jesus is God in the flesh, then the answer would be no. See, for devout Muslims, the very idea that God would choose to become a human being isn't even possible. When we now fold in the mystery of one God, for there is but one God, who is somehow in that oneness, three distinct persons. And yes, this is the doctrine of the Trinity of which I speak and of which the scriptures reveal. By the way, for more on that, you can watch another video that we've done on the Trinity, but from a Muslim perspective, this is unthinkable, which means God somehow stepping into the story as one of us is unthinkable. In fact, in Muslim belief, in Islamic belief, it is considered a sin to compare anything to God because he is completely other, completely holy, and cannot be likened to anything or anyone. Now, that isn't to say that Muslims don't revere Jesus. They do. He is considered one of the four major prophets of Islam. And they believe that Jesus, Isa, they would call him in Arabic, was actually born of the Virgin Mary. He performed miracles, he ascended into heaven, and he will be present on the Day of Judgment. Now that all sounds pretty familiar, doesn't it? But if you noticed, there's something crucial that is missing there, and it's the most central and maybe the most historically verifiable and solid fact about Jesus' life, that he was publicly executed and crucified under Roman rule. The Quran, which comes roughly 600 years after the life of Jesus, states that Jesus did not really die on the cross and that it was only made to appear so. But here's the question for us. Does that sound likely? It would be helpful to know some of the history here. See, for centuries after Jesus' death on the cross, his resurrection, and the movement that followed, people began to wonder, how could this be? How could God become a human being? And at that, how could God then humble himself and die on a cross? Surely God wouldn't allow himself to be subjected to that kind of suffering. Or would he? They didn't quite know what to make of him. So one of the simplest things to do was to reject the most scandalous and alarming part of the story, Jesus dying on the cross. Now this allowed people to move things around, to understand Jesus as teacher and prophet, yes, but without having to consider his claims about laying down his life for us, or what he meant by such famous words as, greater love has no one than this, that someone lay down his life for his friends. Now for Christians, the reality of Jesus' extraordinary life and sacrificial death clearly demonstrates his nature as God in the flesh. Sometimes we'll use the word incarnate. Christians declare this too to be a mystery, not only because it doesn't make sense to us, but because it is almost too wonderful for words. And this is where we must take history seriously. And so we ask the question, can we really understand Jesus apart from the crucifixion? Some people have tried, and respectfully, those ideas and theories gave rise to all sorts of confusion about Jesus. Things that the eyewitnesses and the early Christians soundly rejected. After all, they knew him. They testified to having interacted with him after his very public execution. This is all a part of verifiable history. So what then about the claim that Jesus never died on the cross? It turns out that Muslims are not unlike anyone else who struggles to accept this historical fact. The question then becomes, what is its significance? Why did Jesus die on the cross? And as good students, I think that the earliest sources we can find are the most credible ones for answering that question well. Consider this. Jesus himself went to the cross uttering the words, "Father, forgive them. They know not what they do." There was no confusion or discrepancy here. This was Jesus who said these words, who offers forgiveness, and who willingly died on the cross. Our question, whatever our cultural background or religious views might be, is how will we honestly respond to this? I hope this question has at least begun to answer the questions, do Muslims believe in Jesus? It is certainly a discussion and dialogue that has gone on for generations. We could certainly say much more, and I hope that this will help your own conversations with family and friends about this or other important matters of faith. So let's keep it up. We hope that you'll subscribe and that you'll continue to join us as we continue on this journey together.